What's up, everybody? So I decided to do a little bit of a video for some people that were having questions about the Blackhawk. So this is the Pavehawk. There's not much difference to it other than the refueling boom and the lack of passenger area. So the same things still apply. You still have your ability to attach item, load cargo, etc. You can still do your tape numbers. You can still change your markings, right? Same stuff. Only real difference is the refueling boom and I believe the leer and the cool mustache. So let's get in here and start this thing up real quick. We'll go over a little startup and some HUD symbology. So I use Track IR, so you'll see that I am able to look around the cockpit and do all the cool stuff. So, right, we have our MFDs, our computer down here to the left, our ignition switch, and our horizontal indicator. So, first things first, up here to this overhead panel, standby instruments on, battery 1 on, battery 2 on, APU generator, that's going to get you your power from the exterior, Gen 1, generator 2, and my dog is bumping me. All right, so we have all that started. We see that in our queue here that the battery is good. We want to change our air source to APU. And we want to put our APU fuel boost on. That'll give fuel. And then from here, we want to put pump 2 on. This is to the APU and the engines. And we want to turn our APU on. So this APU continuous, turn that on. You'll hear it spool. So we hear it spooling. All right, we look down here. We have our master caution on, obviously. We have engine 1 out, engine 2 up, in low RPM because the engines aren't on yet. We can clear that temporarily. We see we have a Gen 1 fail, hydraulic pump 1 fail, and for the second engine, right? Because none of it's spinning, so none of it is on, so don't worry about that. But now we have the APU on, right? It's through its startup, battery's good. We want to change our fuel system. So you can do either direct or cross feed, right? So cross feed means it feeds from both tanks. So we turn fuel system 1 on to cross feed also. And then we're going to take the power control lever 1 and 2. We're going to put it to idle. All right, so now we have that in idle. Fuel is on. We have these 2 little buttons right here, right? Now we're going to hit our F key and hold it for a second on engine 1 start. All right, engine 1 should be spooling. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to put the ignition on because that's a thing. All right, engine 1 start. So we're going to watch here on the ECAS for our levels. Right, engine 1, engine 2. This is the overall. So engine 1 looks stable, have good levels. We'll do the same to engine 2. Starting engine 2, you'll see engine 2 starter on. You'll see this right bar here lift, and it'll level out at the idle, which is like 20% or 14. Right, so as it levels out, right, we see they all kind of level out. We're good. We'll hit the master caution clear again. We still have the Gen 1, Gen 2 fail because it's not producing the RPMs. So don't worry about that. It's going to go. So we got that. We can now switch off our pump. We can turn off our APU. We can turn this to engine air source to the engine. We want to now look down at our warning. Right, we just have our parking brake and we have weight on wheels. Wow. All right, so now these screens are still dead because we're in idle. So take PCL 1 to fly, BCL 2 to fly. Now we're alive, right? We have screens, right? Our flight director here for our autopilot and altitude holds. We have our knee computer. So what we want to do is turn on our HMD. We come down here to Mission Systems, HUD. You can use either metric or freedom units. We will use freedom units. Right, so now we have our monocle up. Now, the symbology in the monocle, I'll kind of go over it real quick. This here, T1, T2, this is your exhaust temperatures. This 20, 1, and 2, this is the torque on the motor. So we're at 20 torque. Right, this top left is your ground speed. And then your barometric altitude and your radar altitude. And then your level flight indicator or your power. And then you'll have your time to target and distance and bearing here for any waypoints. We don't have a waypoint set yet. That's another video. So that's pretty much overall that. And this is your level flight. This is your horizontal. So what we'll do, right? We have a parking brake. Everything's on. We are good. Battery good. APU's on. We are in fly. We have all of our stuff set. We want to turn these IGGIs on. I don't know if these are modeled or not. So your radar altitude, IGGI 1 and 2, and then your IFF, but they don't have a squawk code or anything like that. Radios, I do have them on, but I have them turned to different channels because we get the clicky sounds from the main lib server. This is your parking brake. I have it key bound to turn it on and off because I use a HOTAS. So all right, we are good. We are going to do a little lift here and hover. So we're going to bring the collective back. Here the engine start to hit some strain on it. All right, we want to lift, maintain level flight. All right, so we got good lift. We're stable. We look at our numbers, and we're going to taxi off. We don't want to go too fast, right? We'll stay in control at all times. So we'll taxi down here to the runway. You see the top left, we got 16G. It's 16 knots across the ground, or 16 knots. And we have a 36 foot barometric altitude and 17 feet, right? Because we are obviously above sea level. So we'll start to pull back on the stick a little bit, slow it down so we can make this turn, and then we hold short of the runway. A little bit of pedal. Right, so we're holding short of the runway. Don't want to go backwards. That's what we're doing a little bit. Alright, so we're going to take off here. We're going to do a landing. That's how simple it is to start it up. So we'll just fly over here real quick and just do a quick little landing. See, and there's an LZ over here about, see the smoke off to the distance. That's a practice LZ on the training server. So we are running, if you look down here, right, we go over the symbology on the MFD. Here's your ground speed, right? 87 knots, right, 147 feet. Radar altitude of climbing at like 125, right? Horizontal indicator, and then our waypoint and heading. We're good with all that. We don't really have to worry about that. We have most of that information in our HMD. So we'll go over torque too when we we'll do this landing real quick. A lot of people burn the motors out because they don't understand the torque. Because I don't believe in the main server you get a warning for over torquing. So we're at 100 knots and we see we're coming to visual. We want to start to back off. We want to keep this carrot on the right. This is level flight. We want to start to back off, but we don't want to flare. We want to stay level, so we're going to ease off the collective, bring it down. Still bleeding speed and trying to maintain that altitude. right? So we are at 70 knots. We're a little fast. Nose up. 60 knots. 50, 40, 30 knots. Right? Nose, 15 knots, level flight, collective down. A little squirrely because I'm talking and doing it, right? So, we're on the ground. So now we'll go over torque real quick. So your torque, right? Anything over 100, you're going to burn the fucking motors out. So let's lift and get going here. We'll take off this way to the north. So we're at, if you see right here, we're at almost a level flight. We're at, let's see, 27 knots. We have 37 torque. So now if we pull forward, push forward, see that torque start to go up, right? And we're losing altitude, so what do? We pull back in the collective. You see that torque just jump, right? And now we're going to see that torque warning because we're at over 100%. So we want to maintain under 100% on that torque. If not, you'll over torque the motor and you're going to go down into an auto rotation. So just mess around with it, see what works for you, learn. You know, if you full stick forward, just see that torque, right? It just jumps. Right, and it's the same thing. We pull back, it loses the torque. So we can add more collective to it. Let's see, we're 80 knots. We'll go for this building here. Just watch the torque. And you see your level flight indicator on the right vertical tape. Right, so we'll put it down on the road next to here. Right. I do wish that you had better settings for the monocle because some of it washes out so much that you can't really see all the symbology that you need to see. But that's pretty much it for the Blackhawk, as in like basic operation startup, takeoff, landings, right, and just the overall like systems. This is helpful. Like I can do more and go over like waypoints, and a little bit more advanced flying stuff. I usually mess around in the training server, so just let me know if you need any help with anything.